me ask you something. When was the last time you went somewhere, like truly went somewhere and came back different? Not just rested, not just tan, not just full of good food and you have good pictures on your phone, but like different, like something in you shifted. Like God met you somewhere between the airport and the alleyway, and you haven't really quite been the same since. That's what we're talking about today. But here's the thing, most of us think about travel as an escape. We're running from the job, we're running from the stress, we're running from the noise of everyday life. And listen, I get it. I do. I have been that woman. Have needed an escape. But somewhere along the way, God started showing me that travel isn't just an escape, it can be an encounter. There's a difference, y'all, between being a tourist and being a pilgrim. And today, I want to show you that difference because it might just change the way you pack your bags the next time and forever. My name is Carissa, and this is the Pouring Room. I want to take y'all back to the beginning of my travel story. Like, because it didn't start glamorous. It didn't start with a vision board and a first class ticket. It started with me completely being empty. And I was pouring into everything and everybody and everyone, my kids, my business, my hustle. And I was just running around on fumes. My body was tired. My spirit was low and tired. And I had reached a point in my life where I knew something had to change, but I didn't really know what. And then I booked my first solo international trip to Aruba. Now, I had never left the country before by myself, but I want to be honest with y'all. I wasn't scared, but a part of me was a little nervous. Not about safety, but about being alone. Like, what if I felt lonely? What if I felt bored? What if I got out there and realized that with all the noise of my regular life, I didn't even know who I was really in anymore. But I did. I made a decision before I even got on that plane. I decided that I wasn't going to just be alone on that trip. I was going to be alone with God. And I remember just starting with that trip, being on the airplane. And as we ascended and took off, I was in tears, but I was in my worship experience. I had my headphones on and I was listening to that music. And so once I arrived in Aruba, it changed everything. I stepped outside of the resort. I stepped outside the tourist area and I was welcomed by the locals, by like everyday people who were just kind to me, good human beings. And even though I was by myself, I felt befriended. I felt seen. I felt like I started to realize that this is what travel can do when you really open up yourself to it. But the moment that I really cracked something open, it happened to me on this hike. So there are these steps in Aruba called the Huberg steps. I don't even remember exactly, but I think there's like 600 plus steps. And I remember standing at the bottom, looking up and thinking, I'm going to make it to the top of this. Now, I had really been walking 2 or 3 miles back home before I took the trip, taking care of my body, and trying to get out of that burnout phase in place. But I had never done anything like this before. I did take some breaks. There were people that passed me. I won't lie to you, but I did. I made it to the top. And when I got up there and I looked out over that scenery, just me and God and the whole island spread out below, I took a picture, not just for Instagram. I don't even think I posted it, but for me as evidence that I could do hard things. It was like evidence that the woman I was becoming was capable of more than the woman I had been in my past. And then I found this labyrinth. It was like behind this little yellow church near the lighthouse, and it was right there in the back in the landscape. And if you don't know what a labyrinth is, it's like an ancient spiritual practice. You walk the path slowly, intentionally, and as a form of like prayer. You're not trying to find your way out, but you're trying to find your way into something. And I sat there in that labyrinth and I prayed, and I didn't have a fancy prayer. I just poured out what was ever on my heart right then. And I remember telling God, I don't know what I'm going back home to. I don't know what the next chapter of my life is going to look like, but I'm here, I'm present, and I'm ready for like whatever. And that began my surrender. I felt like this breeze come across my face because it's right there off the ocean. And I felt the sun shining and beaming on me. And I really did. I truly felt his presence in a way that I hadn't felt in a long time in that labyrinth. I released things that I had been carrying for years, the weight of being a single mom, the weight of starting over, the weight of surviving when I was really ready to just start thriving in my life. That trip, it really taught me something that I've never forgotten. And that's that God is not confined to a church building, y'all. He's in the landscape. He's in the breeze. He's in the alleyways and the hilltops and the harbors. You just have to be willing to look for him. You have to be carry his presence with you. And after Aruba, I really started intentionally adding spiritual components to every trip that I took. I started seeking out churches and temples and like sacred places, not to worship them, but to understand them, to understand the people who did. And when I went to Bali, Indonesia, now Bali, let me tell y'all, it's something else. Like you can walk anywhere on that island and you will see flowers being burned as like daily offerings. They put them in this little woven basket of petals and incense, and they leave them on the doorsteps, on street corners, at the base of statues. I kept asking people like, what is this? What are they doing? What are these little boxes and these little flower beds I see everywhere? And they would say, that's the prayer. That's how they start their day. They burn it in the afternoon. They burn it in the evenings. And even like when we rode 45 minutes to the other side of the island, and you could see those little offerings like everywhere, every community, every street. And I realized these people have woven the sacred into the ordinary. Like their faith was not something that they did at the beginning of the morning or one time a day or one time a week. It was something that they did every single morning, every single lunchtime, every single evening with their hands and before their day even began. Now, their religion is not my religion. I really want to be clear about that. But I have a deep respect for people who believe in something, people who are reaching toward the divine in whatever way that they know how, because my Christianity is all about God's love, and it's about loving the person that God created, whoever they are, whatever they are, whatever they worship. And travel has really opened my eyes to this truth. When we get to the new earth, I'm going to be living alongside my brothers and sisters from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from every corner of the globe. So why would I wait until heaven to get to know them? Why would I stay confined to my little corner of America out here in Oklahoma when God's family is everywhere? And travel taught me to see people the way that God sees them, in his image as him. Now, I got to talk to y'all about Ghana. Now, see, Ghana is not just a destination, not for me anyway. Ghana is a reckoning. I've been to Ghana several times and I can't wait to go back. And every single time, it does something to me that I really can't fully explain with words, but I'm going to try. So when you land in Ghana, the land like itself, it just speaks to you. There's like a spiritual energy there that you feel in your chest and your heart, even before you leave the airport. And this energy, it's like an energy of like ancestry, of roots, of people who have endured things that should have broken them, but they're still standing, they're still dancing, they're still full of joy and color and life. And I went out to visit the slave castles, and I want you to kind of like sit with that for a moment, because there really aren't any words that are adequate for really what it feels like to stand in that place. It's heavy, y'all. It's heavy to stand in the door of no return and understand what your ancestors were going through, what your people, what they walked through that door, they were never coming back. And the tour guides there, they really they share the story with you. They share very detailed insight of what that's like. They were torn from the land, their families, from their names, from everything that they knew, and even some of them, that was so terrifying for them. They took their own lives. There are a million of our ancestors that are just they just jumped into the ocean. They jumped into the sea, and yet here I was standing on the other side of that door, on the door of return, living whole, living free, and living chosen. It's not an accident, y'all. It's that is sovereignty of God. And as I stood in that castle, I got emotional. I wept. I prayed, and I felt something release in me that I didn't even know that I was really truly carrying. A grief. I was carrying grief that had been passed down through generations, and finally finding a place to land right there. But Ghana, it also gives me joy. I got to tell y'all the whole full picture of it. So after, if you visit Cape Coast, you also can participate in their naming ceremony, like to get your real African Ghanaian name. And if you've never experienced a Ghanaian naming ceremony, you need to put it on your list. Like for real, they dress you from head to toe. The mothers, they dressed my husband, they dressed me, and they ornated us. And the colors, the music, the community, the way that they celebrate the arrival of new life, y'all, it's holy. It's holy. And it's a reminder that life is truly sacred, that every person who comes into this world is a gift, and that community is how we honor that gift. I walked through the markets also while I was there, and the sounds just wash over you. You hear vendors, you hear music coming from somewhere down the street, in a building. You see spices, you smell spices, you see fabrics, fruits, and life. I also recently, on my recent visit, I stayed in this neighborhood called Israel. How about that? You talking about divine appointment? And I remember just walking through the streets and just feeling safe, feeling connected. I even have walked through the Slave River, the forest, and I've watched men and boys pulling a boat to shore with their bare hands, and working together in a rhythm that felt ancient. It felt alive, and it just at the same time. And I also recently sat down with a local there, and we had the most interested, connected talk that I've ever had in my life. And I understood something in that conversation that I couldn't have done, that I couldn't have gotten from a book or a documentary or, a social media post. I understood where I came from. And when you know where you come from, you know who you are. Ghana, it gives me history. Ghana gave me connection. It gave me my ancestry. And Ghana gave me God in a way that was raw and unfiltered and completely, completely undeniable. So here's the teaching for today that I want to leave you guys with. There's a big difference between being a tourist and being a pilgrim. See, a tourist goes somewhere to consume. They go to check boxes, check bucket list, to get a photo, to eat food, to see the landmark, and like to come home with a suitcase full of souvenirs. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. That used to be me. That used to be the way that I travel. I love a good souvenir. But if that's all that travel ever is for you, then you're leaving the best part on the table. Now, a pilgrim goes somewhere to encounter. They go to be changed. They go to show up with open hands and an open heart, and they say, God, what do you have for me here? What do you want me to see? Who do you want me to meet? What do you want to release in me? And what do you want to pour in? The pilgrim, though, is not just about moving through the space, moving around the city, moving from place to place. The pilgrim is moving through the spirit. And the beautiful thing about that is you don't have to go to the Holy Land to be a pilgrim. You can be a pilgrim in Aruba. You can be a pilgrim in Bali. You can be a pilgrim in Ghana. You can even be a pilgrim in the city you lived in your whole life if you're just willing to walk through it with different eyes. You don't have to go to Israel, even though that is one of my desires. I desire to go to Jerusalem, but I can be a pilgrim. I can take in God's wonders and his creations anywhere. And this is how I do it. So a few months ago, I started implementing these small practices, and they have really transformed my travel into something sacred. I pray on the plane, and that's the first thing all of us should do. But before you even land, before you even see the city, ask God to go before you. Ask him to order your steps. Ask him to show up, show you what he wants you to see. That's a simple prayer that will change the posture, I'm telling y'all, of y'all whole trip, entire trip. And then I started journaling with intention. I carry a journal on every trip now, not to document the itinerary, because I already have that in my phone, but to document encounters, document moments and things that I felt that day. And what surprised me was this latest trip, God reminded me of my travel company, which is called I Dare You, and it stands for Impossible Dreams Are Required Universally. And as I was sitting in Ghana, it came to me as I was journaling. God said, I'm the possible God. I take what is impossible and I make them possible. I'm bigger, I'm greater, I'm better than anything. And that's all that you need to do is just bring that to him. When he dropped that in my spirit right there in the middle of that land, this is what happens, y'all, when you create a space to listen. And you have to internet connect and get to meet the locals. Every person you meet on your travel is made in the image of God. The woman selling fabric in the market, the man pulling the boat on the shore, the children that I met at the orphanage when I was there, they are not a backdrop to my vacation. They are people. They're in my pictures, but I looked at them. I talked to them. I learned their names. I communicate with them, and I let their humanity touch mine. So you really have to get uncomfortable. Step outside the resort. Step outside the tourist area. Take the turn you weren't planning on taking. My husband and I, we have stumbled into some of the most extraordinary experiences, unplanned encounters, simply because we follow our inclination to turn left instead of going right, or we throw away our agenda. You can't plan those moments. Even though I'm a travel curator, you can only have those moments when you're open to them. And here's the deepest truth of all that I can give you guys. Learning to let go of your itinerary on vacation is the practice for learning to let go for your life. And I know I talk a lot about a surrendered life, about like releasing control and trusting God with the outcome. And I know that can be a lot for us in the beginning. It was a lot for me. It sounds beautiful in theory and terrifying when you're trying to practice it, but I learned to do it slowly. It's like a muscle. You build it slowly with small little steps, small baby steps that you become repetitive in until it becomes the way you move through the world, until it becomes a part of you. And really, travel is the best training ground there is. When you let go of that rigid schedule and your itinerary, when you say, God, I have a general plan, but I'm open to whatever you have for me today, you're practicing that surrender. When you take the detour, when you sit in the labyrinth like I did, instead of rushing to the next landmark or a tourist site, when you spend an extra hour in the market because you've stopped and you've talked to a local and you're having a conversation that feels really holy, you're practicing surrender. And every time you let go of the small things, you're building the capacity to let go of the bigger things, the relationships, the careers, the outcome you've been white knuckling for years. Let go, try it. Let go of the itinerary. Let go of the plan. Let God move you the way that He wants to move you, and go with the flow. Go with the wind, that they say. Because really, truly, the most sacred moments of my life, the ones that have really changed me the most, the ones that I carry with me in my heart, they weren't on my itinerary. They were the moments that I really stumbled into because I wasn't paying attention, because I was kind of present. I wasn't walking through the world like a pilgrim instead of a tourist. And so, as we close today, I want to give you one thing to take with you. Your next trip, whether it's international or just a weekend away, can be a pilgrimage if you choose to make it one. Before you go, ask God to meet you there. Ask Him to show you something you couldn't see from home. And while you're there, look up from your phone. It's not the time to be on your phone. You on your phone when you're at home. Step outside of the resort. Talk to the people. Sit in sacred spaces, y'all, and journal what you feel. Let the land speak to you. Embrace it and be present with you. And when you come home, don't just unpack your suitcase. Really unpack what God gave you. Write it down. Sit with it. Let it change you. That's sometimes when I start looking back through my pictures in my phone and I'm remembering and I'm smiling and I'm just taking in all of those moments, those unexpected moments that I didn't know that I had planned. Because really, travel is not just an escape. It really is an invitation. It's God saying to us, come, let me show you something. Let me show you the world that I made and the people I love and the parts of yourself that you don't even know exist. You haven't even met that person yet. You don't have to be rich to be a pilgrim. You don't have to have a passport full of stamps. You just really have to be willing to go, willing to look, and willing to let go. I'm Carissa, and this is The Pouring Room. I want to thank you guys for being here with me today. And if this episode moved you, something in you, share it with the fellow sister who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you're ready to travel with intention, Come and find me if you're ready to travel with a community, with purpose, and with God at the center of the whole experience. Y'all, come find me because I'm building something for the women just like you. This isn't about just seeing the world, it's about being found in it. So let's go.